I'd like to call to order the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for July 9th, 2025. Roll call, please.
Arel. Budke. Kleva.
Present.
Oh, mine's an old one. Kuhn. Holt.
Here.
Mattson.
Here.
Reichert.
Here.
Sandy. Here. Wasvik.
Present.
We have a quorum.
All right, reading and approval for the minutes from the June 4th, 2025 meeting.
Move approval.
Moved by Mr. Reichert, second by Mr. Budke. Sorry, Mr. Mattson, didn't see you. Any further discussion on the minutes? Not seeing any hands. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved as submitted. Please.
I have a question about the agenda, and I don't know if this would be for Mr. Gosted or for you, Ryan, but the mural, I don't know which number it is, the mural, 3-9. Why is that?
Thank you.
Why is that under public hearings, final approvals, when it hasn't been to us yet, and it doesn't actually qualify for a variance based upon your email? I would recommend that we move that into communications and preliminary approvals.
Mr. Brooks or Mr. Gosted? Please enlighten us.
We did advertise a public hearing, but I don't know if one was required by this, but what we typically have done on those items that are like that, if we're only seeing it once here, then we'll leave it as a 3 item. I think whether it's within 3-9 or 4-1, the order on the agenda, I guess, wouldn't have mattered, but in the end, since it was only going to be before you one time, that's why we had put it under a 3 item, but we did actually advertise it as well, just to be on the safe side. That was going to be on the agenda. Is that the code doesn't technically require it to be a public hearing though.
So what made us choose that? And I understand people are here to talk about it, but I think that we're here to talk about the mural code, not whether or not people enjoy the mural. And so I'm concerned about the process, that this is under a public comment. I'm just trying to understand why that is.
Yeah, I think we followed, in the past, we did that, like with the Valley one as well. I think that's the only other one that we've had that was residential within that area. And I think we advertised that one too, just to be on the, typically we are on the side of safety in terms of putting out a public comment period or a public hearing. But whether it was required or not, that's certainly, I think in this case, directive of the chair.
So was the Valley one though, wasn't that an ordinance change and then a request to do a mural?
Correct, it was at the same time.
I find that completely different than, oops, we put up a mural.
But in this one, the way we advertised it was for a request for approval within a residential. I understand your comment. We've placed this under approval within the residential district is the way we have it on the agenda. I know there's going to be lots of conversations about the fact that it is already up, but the way we've advertised it was approval within a residential distrite. That's
So they're
what it is.
asking for a variance on something that we shouldn't legally be giving a variance on? Did I understand your note that you had sent out today?
I'm going to answer the first question on the hearing.
Okay.
Okay? Because I think the topic, I think Mr. Brooks is correct. There is a necessity for a public hearing on this particular matter.
Okay.
However, it has been advertised as a public hearing. I think because of that, right, wrong, or indifferent, I think you should allow the public hearing to proceed. May take a little bit longer, but I think if the chair can control so that we don't get repetitive comments.
I think I'll do fine.
Yes, I think he'll be able to handle it. But given the set of circumstances, I think we proceed with the public hearing comment. It may not have been necessary, but we're here now, and I think you just allow that to proceed forward. And I'll be prepared, once you get to that topic, I'll be prepared to go through my memo that was shared with everybody and give you maybe a more topside view of it.
Okay. And I'm always concerned about doing it one way for one situation, because there are lots of situations where we don't have public comment, and I'm sure that a lot of people would love to make a comment, so I'm just concerned that we're always following that same process, so, that's all. Thank you.
Appreciate your comments. Ms. Sandy? Okay, get into it. Public hearings, final approvals, petitions, and changes. Mr. Brooks.
So for 3.1 and 3.2, the request from the applicant is to postpone indefinitely. That doesn't mean it's done. It's just, I don't know if they're going to come back in August. It looks like it could be September, it could be August. So right now, we're asking for it to be postponed indefinitely. We will not automatically put it on August unless they have their materials ready at that time.
Do
So
we
with
need to
that-
vote on this
We
matter?
do. We need to
Okay.
vote to postpone indefinitely.
Oh, that's right.
I'll move to postpone.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Sandy, second by Mr. Mattson. Any further discussion? Not hearing any. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. 3.1 is postponed. 3.2, same thing.
Move to postpone.
Moved by Mr. Mattson, second by Ms. Sandy. Any further discussion? Not seeing any. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. 3.1 and 3.2 are postponed. 3.3.
I'd just like the record to show that I didn't vote on 3.1 or 3.2. I have a conflict.
Thank you, Mr. Reichert. It will show that.
3.3, ordinance to amend zoning map to rezone from UD University District to R4 multifamily residence, high-density district located at 2920 Fifth Avenue North.
Mr. Brooks.
Thank you, Chair. This one was before you last month. This one's final approval, we did send out notices 800 feet around as required by code. I'll quickly provide some information on it. Here's Cambridge Road and Fifth Avenue. In this area here, I think this is Newman Church, the church here, the Catholic church, that's Newman Center, on the campus there. It's just to the north of there. It's vacant land currently. It's owned by Oxford. They're making a request to go from the UD district to the R4 district for the purposes of building a fiveplex. Within your packets is the picture of that fiveplex. Within our UD district, what's currently allowed, single family, there's duplexes that are allowed. And then other university uses as well. So fraternities, sororities, as you see around that area, the church is permitted use as well. And so in the past, as we discussed last time, this area could have fit 3 duplexes, which would have been a total of 6 units. At the time when I spoke with the developer, the discussion was around doing those 3 duplexes. They, at the end, decided to pivot. They wanted to do the 5-unit townhome instead. We did let them know that required a rezoning. And in the interest of a lot of neighborhood comments we had heard in the past was definitely about the number of units. And so I was not necessarily going to be kind of hold that process up. When we look at some other pieces in that neighborhood, there's lots of other kind of multi-units beyond what would normally be allowed, duplexes, that type of thing. There is a sorority that's to the west of this property. And in terms of looking at that massing, it was similar, definitely architecturally different. A lot of those old sororities have a different look to them. And as I understand it, the sorority that's kitty corner may not be operational. I've heard various accounts of that perhaps that one's not active anymore. So with that, I'm certainly open to answering any comments that you or questions that you may have, and this one is for public hearing as well.
All right. Any questions for Mr. Brooks before I open up the public hearing? We saw this last month too, so I guess I'll open up the public hearing. Anybody in the audience would like to step up and address 3.3, please do so at this time. Hi, please state your name and address for the record.
Thank you. Thank you, members of the committee. My name is Jennifer Tarlin, and I'm a resident of Grand Forks. I live on Fifth Avenue North. There's actually a community of residents who live in that area, and there is a very nice neighborhood and a neighborhood association that I've been active with. And I've lived in Grand Forks for 30 years. I've lived at my home on Fifth Avenue North for about 7 years. And over the course of the 7 years I've lived there, I've watched the really gentle transformation of my neighborhood from one that was largely families and sort of small, modest houses with families, young children, university faculty, and students living together. Today, there are only 3 owner-occupied units on my section of Fifth Avenue North. I'm asking you to not actually recommend rezoning of this area. There has been, in the past few years, considerable expansion of housing for university students. I can think of Memorial Villages 1 and 2, The Verge, Borden, and many, many others, both by the university and private developers. There has been, as far as I know, no similar expansion of single-family residential housing in our neighborhoods, or encouragement of either preserving our neighborhoods or expanding affordable single-family housing in those neighborhoods. The higher density housing that is proposed leads to, among other things, loss of green space, greater congestion, more demand for parking, paving over of what was formerly green space, and ultimately the erosion of community. We actually do have a thriving community in the North End, and it's a shame as I watch it deteriorate and be turned into often not very well-maintained rental units, and also students who often take advantage of being able to live in private housing so they can drink more. There is indeed a problem with alcoholism at UND. I'm immediately aware of it because I observe it on my street every weekend. So I'm asking you, don't change the code. I think it sets a very bad precedent to create a sort of an island of one zone in a larger island of a different zone. It's certainly, changing the code would certainly be good for developers and for people who deal in real estate and make their living that way. But it's not good for our community and for the permanent community who live in our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So anybody, let's hold our applause. We've got a busy night. Please.
60 seconds. May I have 60 seconds?
Yeah, oh yeah, please state your name for the records and address.
All right. My name is Barbara Knipe. I live at 819 North 24th Street. That's about a block from Memorial Park Cemetery. I'm in Ward 2. And I'm here to also give you my vote no. Please don't change this zone. I don't think we ought to be changing zones to meet the needs of a builder. I think the zones are there for a reason, and we need to keep them. And I would read one sentence from the city code, and basically to share that because of the public that's here. The city code is on the Grand Forks Gov website. It's open for anyone who wants to read it, and it states this: the Planning and Zoning Commission must determine that the building design and construction is compatible and in harmony in scale, bulk, material, and appearance with the neighborhood and the adjacent community. Thank you.
Thank you. So, yeah, please. We'll get through this.
Hi, I'm Linda Olson. I'm on Hamlin Street, so I'm kind of right in the middle of the zone. I'm also asking to vote no to changing what our zoning is. I have a number of notes. I'm sorry, I'm hard of hearing, so I don't know if I'm going to repeat what they said because I couldn't catch it, but we need closed captioning here. When you look at the picture of what it is, one of the questions that come up, I have some structural questions, if it's a slab or if it has a basement. If it's a slab, are we, and we should be, requiring a storm room in every residence that's built? So if there was a tornado, there's a place for those people to go to be safe. It's like a closet. You go to FEMA, you can get the blueprints. Because if they don't have a basement, where are they going to go, right? Because sometimes you don't have a half hour to go somewhere. I have a question, you know, you look at it, it's pretty plain. Is it prefab, is it wood frame, is it cement walls? I have no clue. It looks pretty boring to me, if I can be honest. The attic area, and you guys would be the ones on this. There's been so many fires in the last couple of years on these tall buildings with these big peak roofs, and it starts over here and it just travels through the attic so that the whole building goes inflamed. When I look at this picture, I'm really wondering if they're putting in those barriers to prevent that. Because if you are starting to try to combine all these buildings together and you get a fire, you know, somebody forgets something on the stove, we've had those things around, it just travels. So I'm not sure what the,
Our city inspectors would make sure that there's fire barriers between
well,
residences.
you know,
I think this one's going to be required to be sprinkled as well since it's a fiveplex, but I'd have to check with building inspections for sure.
yeah, another thing is, the biggest objection is it doesn't fit single home neighborhood, where you have green space, where you have pet space, where you have neighbors who can help out neighbors. I'm wondering how much green space there is here, because when I read it, they're talking about the parking. Here's a second. And he's talking about, oh, they have a garage for one space, there's 4 bedrooms, so they're assuming 4 people. Huh. You have one parking space in the garage. They think one person can park behind the garage, where the other one has to come in and out. And then they're talking about behind the garage, like in the alley. So are they talking about taking a whole strip so that they can be parking toward the house, so that's another width? And then they have this building, and we have no idea what this width is, and they have a 25-foot setback. So do they have any green space? I mean, we have a neighborhood where we have people walking, you know, where we go talk with our neighbors, where we mow, you know, and I just don't see that happening here. So, and the other thing is that it looks like it's just plain industrial front, like there's no brick or anything to kind of make it more neighborly, warm, home, comfy, whatever. So I don't know how much green space Grand Forks is requesting anymore or requiring anymore for these places. I don't know. But those are some structural comments I have. I don't know.
Well,
And I
thank
know
you
this
very
is-
much. I appreciate your comments. I mean, a good comment. Mr. Brooks can probably help answer, I know the developer here as well, but I know part of the preliminary approval on this from this commission is we looked at the neighborhood and we looked at what it would do, and then we went from 5 or 6 duplexes, right? 3
6 total,
duplexes,
yeah,
so
6
6
total.
units down to 5. So that's what we were thinking, that's why we gave it a preliminary approval, so that people could send the letters out and let everybody know. That was our thinking. So we actually were thinking that it could reduce density in that neighborhood. Correct me if I'm wrong. That was kind of where the commission left it. And we had a good, long conversation over this on what's the right thing to do. And that's kind of what this body felt, is that it was reducing it by allowing the developer to build a 5-plex versus 6 units in duplex formation. And one of the developers, or Mr. Brooks, could probably answer the question, are we gaining green space by the 5-plex? Or are we losing green space, or are we just even wash?
It permitted to be even wash, I guess, is you're looking at 55% coverage, similar to the rest of the area, 45% total green space. I haven't seen a site plan as of yet, but that's what they'd be permitted on that site.
Okay. I have a couple of short comments.
Yep.
Thank you for the letter. This is the first time we're actually getting to talk about it. It was offensive to me. In the letter, it was saying, oh, it was sent out and there's no comments. We don't have any comments. People don't have a clue what you're talking about. We're the residents. And even in that letter, in the guide, you know, when it's talking about goals or something, talking about working with the developers and the residents. Did you guys talk to any of the neighbors? Did you talk to us? No. So
We are
this is our
tonight.
first opportunity.
We are right now.
Yeah, right. No, this is our first opportunity, so we have comments and we say, no. So,
Okay.
okay, I just wanted to make that clear.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much for your time, and I appreciate it.
All right. All right, I think with that, we will close the, oh, one more? Okay, please state your name and address for the record.
Clara Hugh. I'm on Hamlin Street as well. My parents bought the house that my sister and I now own when I was 2 years old. I've never lived anywhere else. And UND has tried to push me out a few times. One of the houses on the corner of 6th and Hamlin Street every spring puts and this is one of the rentals. So kind of makes me wonder about the management. Always has a sign up there, honk equals we drink. I have to pick up beer cans. I've picked up glass. I've had college students pissing in in the bushes that separate me from UND's property and had to call the cops on them. This is not what I want for neighbors. I've grown up where they are putting it. Yes, somebody else now owns it. I grew up playing in that green space. My neighbors across the street had a garden in that green space. He was a professor at UND. If that's what we're going to end up with, I don't want this. On top of it, we're right by the Ralph. Parking is a premium, and that includes my driveway, which I have to call when I get off work on a hockey night and go, hey, UND police, come tow this car. And then I got to wait 2 hours, and they still don't. And they tell me, oh, well, it's almost over. We've contacted them. They'll come and get it. They're already patrolling. They don't patrol for the residents. They patrol for anybody with UND. This is a bad idea. It's going to put more people in there that don't care.
Sorry for your frustrations, ma'am.
It's very
I am.
frustrating.
Yep.
I mean, you look at, one of my other neighbors is, actually 2 of my neighbors are here also. One of them hasn't lived there as long, but they've raised their 3 kids. My other neighbor moved there 2 years after my parents bought the house. We're long-term residents. You know, it's not right that you guys can just make a, decision and, oh, hey, how about maybe you make a comment now? It's a little late. I would have liked to known beforehand. So, no, I don't think this is a good idea.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
You
you.
for your comments. All right, with that, I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission. Mr. Reichert,
Move approval.
moved by Mr. Reichert,
Second,
second by Ms. Sandy.
I'd like to make a comment.
Please, Ms. Sandy.
I understand your frustration, and I get it. I don't think that that building this 5-plex is what the frustration actually is. I think the frustration is the management of our rental properties in Grand Forks. And I believe the city council is looking at that, and I certainly hope that they are, because it's really quite appalling to go up to this beautiful neighborhood that could be really great for young families to move into, and it's time after time. And actually talk to your neighbors, because who they sell their house to matters, okay? So if you don't want this in your neighborhood, then don't sell your homes to a landlord. The city can't control that, if they're renting their house or not. We have no rules against that. So I think this goes far beyond this 5-plex, which I think, unfortunately, I feel that this will belong here because it's close to the university and it's within that university zoning district. They need housing, but there's really no excuse for the way that some of these properties are managed and handled and the behaviors that take place in a residential neighborhood.
Thank you, Ms. Sandy. Mr. Budke.
Quick comment. I recall when there was a prior version out on this precise lot, but it was referenced, right, a larger, taller complex. And I made a comment then that I feel like this area would be well suited to a form-based code. I'd just like to re-up that comment. I think that some of what I heard here about driveways, green space, orientation of garages would be better served by that sort of a code. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. With that, any further discussions? If not, I'll call for a vote.
I have a comment.
I've closed the public hearing, ma'am. What's your comment?
I would like to respond to some of the things that were said. First of all, I agree with Ms. Sandy about the mismanagement of so many of the properties. In addition to that, there are so many parking problems. The density of people that are moving in with vehicles. I mean, if we have a 5-plex and at least 2 students in each one of those, we're talking about probably 10 more vehicles, possibly more. We do not have the space for that. Not only are they putting beer cans and peeing in our yards, and we're calling the police constantly. Yes, that's a management problem. There's not enough parking. As Dr. Tarlin mentioned earlier, there are numerous pieces to this, and the mismanagement is one piece. But when we look at the zoning and planning, there are many. So
That's why we tried to look at it as 6 units, 3 duplexes versus 5 units is the amount of people. That's where we all came from on it, was trying to reduce the amount of people, because he can, without
so the
any change
decision
to
was
planning.
made already.
No, any change to planning, he wouldn't have, the developer wouldn't have to come in if he just wanted to build, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Brooks, if the developer wanted to build 3 duplexes right now, he wouldn't even have to be here, correct?
Yeah, the current size of that property could fit 3 duplexes with the current
So
zone.
we tried to look out for just so you guys know, we tried to look out for the neighborhood and slim that down with the developer's help to go to 5 units instead of 6. So there was a lot of thought into the neighborhood and a lot of people here who really put their heart into it and tried to, otherwise the developer wouldn't even have to come before this body. He could just build his 6 units, 3 duplexes, sorry.
And
So just so you know where we come from, we feel for everybody on
Thank
this.
you for saying that.
But-
and I'm just saying
We're stuck.
that it's very problematic.
So
I'll end with
either
that.
way, something's gonna get built there. So with
It would be
that,
wonderful to see a single-family dwelling back.
I would too, but here we are. So with that, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 3-4.
3-4 ordinance to amend zoning map to rezone from Meadowview Ridge PUD Amendment 3 to Meadow Ridge Amendment 4, density increase to allowance of first floor residential located at 1065 47th Avenue South.
Mr. Brooks.
Thank you, Chair Wozniak. So on this one, again, this was here last month for the preliminary, and now we final. This is where we do. Sorry, thanks. This is where we'll do the public hearing, so that at our final approval. So notices again mailed 800 feet around the property. I think I need to provide at least some history on this one as well, because I've been asked some questions as to how this became B3 in the first place. This entire area sat green space farmed for many years until Valley Dairy, I think, built on this corner of 47th and Washington. And then shortly thereafter, Hugo's, I want to say 2014, purchased the remaining property. At that time, there was concerns from the neighbors to the east about connections, road connections through that area. The developer, Hugo's at the time the owner, put in the buffer of the townhomes in that area. They also put essentially stubbed 49th so it didn't continue through that property to kind of separate out that traffic at that time. In addition, they put the commercial property up here, the Lot 1 B3 type uses up in this area up here, which is that Lot 1. That's, at that time, it was allowed to be mixed use as well. There was a limit of 72 units that was put on it at that time. Commercial was going to be on the bottom floor. That was the conversation with them. Now we fast forward to today. The request now is to rezone the property. They're asking for an additional floor up to 5 stories and for up to 160 units for residential units. They're still working on what that plan would look like. They would have to meet parking requirements to put that on that site. And so they're still, I think, still working through what that looks like. Potential that the 160 units goes down. The last plan I think I saw was more along the lines of under 150 units, but that's still being worked on. So just so you're aware of, they would have to meet our zoning requirements on the property in terms of parking, impervious lot coverage, those types of things. I think I've hit at least what that history was. I wanted to provide that to you for context as to how we got to zoning on this property. And I'm happy to stand for any questions that you may have.
All right, any questions for Mr. Brooks? With that, I will open up the public hearing. Anybody who'd like to come up to the microphone, address item 3-4, please do so at this time. We got one, sorry. Please step up to the microphone and state your name and address for the record.
Absolutely. Kevin Kuntz, 4768 Pine Circle. It's good I know a few of you. I wasn't sure about this committee. I don't follow you guys very much, so sorry.
We like to hide.
There you go, yeah. So, I just wanted to come and speak to this. Thank you for your time. As I was thinking about if I should come and speak, what I was thinking about was the Starbucks on Wash and Demers. We put that thing in there, and all of a sudden we have this huge traffic problem. And it's not the owner of the property, it's not their problem, it's our problem. It's the citizens, it's the city. Another example I thought of over on Central Plains Court. I don't know if any of you have driven up that road recently, but behind it is Choice Fitness. And it's the back part where they play tennis that's super tall. And it just towers above the backyards of the folks there. And every time I go by there, I think they'd probably like a do-over on that one. So that kind of just got me thinking, and why it's so important to come and speak to folks like yourself, because truly you are the guardrails. You're what protects the community. You're what protects the citizens. You're what protects the little people like us, if you will. So that being said, going back to this property here, and the proposal, the first thing that comes into my mind is our sight lines to the sky. I mean, frankly, we don't have to look far. We just look across the street at Franklin, and that's kind of what we're looking at. So, very relative in height to a 5-story building. So, just with that, nobody wants that in their backyard. It kind of ruins the ambiance, the sanctity of the neighborhood. Further, traffic is a concern. I've been on Pine Circle since 2008. When I moved into my place, my kids were 1. They're going to be seniors now. And we could see all the way to Hugo's on 32nd. Since that time, we've had tremendous growth on the south end, and that's a great thing. We want growth, we want restaurants, we want stuff. But we can also see it on 47th. That street is much, much busier than it used to be. We walk our dog to Optimus Park, and it is a continuous flow of traffic now. It's loud, it's noisy, people are speeding by even with the 4-way stop. I don't know how much more traffic that can handle. It brings in and out all the traffic from a large area. It goes all the way back to Belmont. People take that road. So I would just say, we need to manage our growth there. We need to manage the impacts of that growth in the traffic. And we do need to account for the additional traffic if we make this structure bigger. We have to consider it's going to have commercial development. There's the new Hugo's coming in, and we still have all the existing traffic. And in addition, we've got kids coming and going. There's kids all the time on all forms of transportation, from rollerblades to new things. I don't even know what they are yet. And every which way, riding bikes and whatnot, going to the Valley Dairy to get stuff, or going to South Middle School. So, and the last I'd like to point out, I'm not saying no to an apartment building. That's not what this is all about. I'm just saying no to the amendments to the zoning that are already in place to protect us from exactly what we're talking about. So, yeah, and that being said, I'm just asking you all to say no to this project, which by, if you guys approve these changes, which by all outward appearances would drastically and could overwhelm our local area. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, anyone else want to address this item? Just please step up, state your name and address for the record.
Mary Ascom Loveseth. I live at 893 49th Avenue South. I've been a resident of Grand Forks for 50 years and 1 month. So I have a long history of living in this community. I want to speak out against the rezoning of this area. If you read much about, and I don't want to insult the group, but if you read much about planning and location theory, a basic premise is that you build to enhance the landscape of the community. That's the bottom line in planning. You enhance the landscape of the community. And when you do that, you also increase property values in that area too. There are 3 things that are on your list for what to be rezoned. One is the density, one is the height, and one is the mixed development, mixed-use development aspect. I want to speak to 2 of them. But before I do, I want to make some comments about the preliminary things that were done. There was a postcard that was sent out regarding the open house in form over at Choice Wellness. I did attend that. The council report or staff report said there was about 10 people there. I think there was more than that when I was there. And it said that generally the residents, the people that were there, were generally in favor of it. I did not get that perception. When I was there, there were some incorrect statements that were made. When I raised the issue of the ingress-egress because of the traffic, they said, oh, there's no traffic going on to 47th. You can see how there's this nice open area that we got the pickleball court and then we got the putting green. So there's no access coming right into that. Well, you got 11th Street. That's how they're going to get into that, along with 1 block off of right along South Washington to get access. So anytime you, anytime you brought up an issue, it was always talking about the amenities. Oh, see the nice overhang. You know, that's a new concept in the development. So they always try to detract you from the core issue of what citizens were concerned about. So I wanted to speak to that. Of the 3 changes, I wanted to speak to the height and the density. When you take a look at wanting to increase it to 160, now that's looking at probably at least a minimum of 1 vehicle per unit. You know, if there's a household, both people have vehicles. If there's college students that are going to live there in the 3-bedroom, because it's 1, 2, and 3-bedroom, you probably have 3 vehicles. So here you can add another 250 cars or better, I'm just making an average here, to what already is existing in that area. And for the ingress-egress, we have, which Kevin has spoken to, you've got Starbucks, you've got Choice Wellness, you've got Icon, plus you have people on the south end, along with our own neighborhood coming there. That's a lot of traffic, and you've got kids going to school on their bikes with open enrollment. You know, they just don't stop at South Washington. There's lots of kids going in the morning on the bikes in that area. So it's definitely an issue with that. And even with the retail development that is proposed there, you've got cars coming in for that. So the number of vehicles and the distance that the 2 ingress and egress areas are probably too close to the lights currently on South Washington and 47th to put in another series of lights. And if you do, there's going to be more congestion than if you even didn't, because of creating that, I've got sort of a cold here. The other issue that I want to speak to is on the height issue. 4 stories is quite high in itself. And if you drive by any 4-story building, and I've done that after I drove closer to, because of the distance approximating where it's going to be placed on 47th, I drove up to those 4-story buildings, apartments, and then I thought, okay, there's going to be another floor on top of that. I walked Pine Circle last night and I talked to many residents. On Pine Circle, you're still going to have more than 50% of those units going beyond Pine Circle. So in the winter, we've got a total wall of blockage for them. And the townhomes that are there, they'll probably never see daylight unless it's high noon. Because when you take a look at that, it was like 7:30 at night. With that there, they aren't going to have any sun. In the wintertime, it'll be like 3 o'clock. Can you imagine having that right next to your unit, especially if you were the townhomes? That when you looked out, you had your backyard, and then you saw a 5-story building there. I behoove you to walk these streets before you make a decision, to envision that, because the landscape of a community is so important in your planning. And just because a developer wants to develop it does not make sense when you're looking at the overall neighborhoods for us. One of the last things I want to talk about with the height issue, we can't control who rents these apartments. And in our world today, it's a strange world that we live in. For our privacy and our security, anybody on the 4th and 5th floor looking down into the close proximity of these houses that are right there, and we have a lot of kids in our area right there. Because of Pine Circle being a cul-de-sac, 49th, it's a dead end. The kids play on the street. Easy for anybody just to be looking into your backyard, looking at kids, it just sends sort of chills up and down my spine to think of the possibilities what that could do for our neighborhood and for our community. My last comment is related to, it seems sort of ironic that our mayor, current mayor, but 7 years ago was very, very adamantly opposed to any development in his neighborhood. Hit the press in the Herald, lots on the news, lots of articles. You can go Google it now and find many, many articles. Adamantly opposed to it. His solution, he bought the land. We can't do that. So it seems strange how things have changed, and now it's just build into a very established neighborhood, putting 5-story apartment. That belongs more out. If I was on the 5th floor, I'd want to have a view. I don't want to be looking at somebody's backyard. I don't want to be looking at the swimming pools and kids in the swimming pools in the backyard, looking at them.
No, I understand your frustration with
Yeah.
that.
So I think my 5 minutes is up with that, but.
Way more than that, but I'm not timing you. Thanks for your
I
comments.
appreciate that.
Thanks for
Thank
your
you.
comments. All right. With that, I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission. I thought we had one more, but we're good. Mr. Reichert.
Move approval.
Moved by Mr. Reichert,
Second.
second by Mr. Mattson. Any further discussion on this? Seeing no hands, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Okay. On the record, one opposed. 3-4 does pass. 3-5.
Replat of lots 1 and 2, Homestead Grove 4th Edition, and Lot A, Block 1 of the replat of Lot 3, Block 1, Homestead Grove 4th Edition, located at 1060 47th Avenue South.
Ms. Johnson.
Thank you, Chair Wasvik. So this item and the next one are actually together, so is it okay if I present them both? And then-
Yep, and then we'll split them and vote on them.
Okay, cool. So the first one is the replat. So this replat would reconfigure these 3 existing lots here, lots C, D, and E, as well as create 4 lots, lots F, G, H, and J. The purpose of this is to create lots for the stormwater retention ponds that line the street here along South 11th Street, so the city can take over maintenance of the ponds, as the city already maintains several other regional ponds throughout the city. So with that, a memorandum of understanding is being worked on between the Park District and the city as part of that, which will include all of the various maintenance items. So that's that on the replat. And then for the vacation, this request is to vacate the drainage easement that runs along South 11th Street, which contains all of those stormwater retention ponds. So it was originally platted to ensure the long-term presence of the ponds along South 11th Street, to capture the runoff generated by Choice and the Icon Sports Complex, and also to allow other properties along South 11th Street to drain into the ponds. But with the ponds being platted on their own lots with the intention of the city taking over the maintenance, this easement is no longer needed. So as you can see here, this is the easement, the hatched area. It runs all the way along here down South 11th Street and contains all those stormwater ponds. And so with that, that's all I have. Staff is recommending approval. I'll stand for any questions.
Any questions for Ms. Johnson before we go? Mr. Budke?
Yeah, so obviously this hinges on the maintenance. Is there a reason that we couldn't have the same agreement, memorandum of understanding without splitting the lot? Like, couldn't we come to the same administrative agreement?
I think what we've done with the other regional ponds is the city owns them. It's probably a piece of liability piece, insurance, those types of things. So in the past, what we've done is we've taken them over as opposed to doing it through an easement.
Okay.
So we're following that same premise.
Too taxing anyways, we lose.
The MOU will take care of the other pieces that they've actually proposed to mow for us since they're there. And so we're still working out those final details, but it's been good conversation with them so far, and we do work well with the park.
Okay,
So,
Ms. Sandy,
so the ponds are staying, it's just a matter of who owns them?
who maintains them?
Okay, perfect.
Okay, anybody, I guess I'll open up a public hearing on this since we're following this. Anybody in the audience like to step up and address 3-5, please do so at this time. Not seeing a stampede on this one, we'll close the public hearing, bring it back to commission.
Move approval.
Moved by Mr. Reichert. Second by Mr. Rell. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, 3-5 passes unanimously. 3-6, we need to read it in. Please do.
Yeah, we should read it in.
Vacation of drainage easements located at 4,000 to 4,700 blocks of South 11th Street.
Ms. Johnson, any comments?
None for me.
Comments from the commission? I will, if not, open the public hearing, close the public hearing, bring it back to the commission. Ms. Reichert.
Move approval.
Moved by Mr. Reichert.
Second.
I think that same one was read twice, am I?
No,
3-5 was the plat, and 3-6 is
the same.
vacation of the easements. They're
Same.
related.
Okay.
okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, 3-6 is passed. 3-7.
3-7 is replat of lots A through Y and lots 9 through 23, Block 2, Southern Estates, First Edition.
Ms. Grasser.
All right, good evening, Chair and Commission. So this replat is to change both the east and west side. This east side I'll start with, they are going from fourplexes to attached townhomes. So you can kind of see the layout that they are proposing here. This is the newest layout. This one was a little bit messier, but you can see the dotted lines were the old connected fourplexes. The new solid lines is what they're going to. So that brings the unit count down from 24 to 16 units. And then they are leaving the west side the same. They are just making sure that they are there. Going from 24 to 16 units, that makes the common lot a little bit bigger, and they are adequately meeting their setbacks. I'll stand for any questions. Staff recommends approval.
All right, any questions for Ms. Grasser? Mr. Budke, please.
Yeah, so I know we've talked before about like the overall housing supply in the city and how that is a factor contributing to the affordability issues around housing. So I guess when I saw this, I thought it was unfortunate that we're losing 8 units from what the original plat, what was proposed. So I guess my question is, does the city have a target for the number of housing units, dwellings to bring online in, say, a given year?
Do you want to take that one, Haley? From the multifamily, it's 250 to 300.
Okay.
From single-family townhomes, we're over 150 we would like to see. We haven't come close to hitting either one of those, but that is our desire, because what's happening, and thank you for the question, what's happening is there is a price increase that's going on overall due to stock supply. Supply and demand certainly raising up the prices. And at the same time, I think they're dealing with the crunch of material costs and those types of things that have happened in the last, well, since COVID really, right? So we're dealing with all those things that's added to that. So I think I've added to what your question was. But those are all things that we're hitting on. 150 to 150, maybe even higher for single family and townhomes.
Thank you.
No, good question, Mr. Budke.
Steve,
Yeah.
dumb question. In the report, it said lot WW, the common lot, increased in size. I can't find that on the plat. Can you help me?
So WW is kind of everything around, so it'll share this. It'll share anywhere where, I guess, I was gonna say there's white space, but it goes all the way from this side to this side, and so it's all the green space.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And just
Good
to
catch, thank you.
clarify that a
Another
little bit.
good question.
The buildings themselves are platted on their own lots. The WW is everything else within the association.
I saw XX. I didn't see a WW on the plat, and maybe I just couldn't find the note in there somewhere. I don't know.
Okay. Very good. Any other questions, Ms. Sandy?
I just want to commend the developer for decreasing the density on this property. When this came, I remember there was quite a discussion because it was always assumed park, even though it was private ownership. And that was a real shock to the neighborhood to have that kind of density built on that spot. So I like what they've done so far. I drive past that often, and I think it looks quite nice, and it's been quite successful. I think most of the ones that have been built are already sold. So I know Andrew and I disagree on this most often, but I appreciate the decrease in density on this project. And I'd move approval if nobody has, or
I got a public hearing, Ando. Okay, with that, I think I'll open the public hearing. Anybody in the audience would like to address 3-7, please do so at this time. Seeing nothing, I'll close the public hearing, bring it back to the commission. Ms. Sandy? Ms. Sorrell seconds. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
All right, thank you. 3-7 passes. 3-8.
Nutrient egg solution fertilizer and chemical storage facility, conditional use permit located at 5301 North Washington Street.
All right, so this request is a 10-year conditional use permit, which would allow Nutrient Egg Solutions, formerly Crop Production Services, to operate as a fertilizer and chemical storage facility in the I-2 Heavy Industrial District at 5301 North Washington Street. So our heavy industrial zoning ordinance requires a conditional use permit for the storage of hazardous and non-hazardous materials in conformance with the Uniform Fire Code. So the materials that are stored at the facility that are also listed in the draft conditional use permit do qualify under this section, so conditional use permit is required. And a little context on the conditional use permit that was in place, it expired in January of this year, and it was actually for a prior location at 4500 54th Avenue North, which is actually just north of the one I'm speaking of tonight. So it was also for a fertilizer and chemical storage facility, but they just moved it down to 5301 North Washington Street. Still owned and operated by Nutrien Ag Solutions, so essentially conditional use permit for a different location, but same use. This last conditional use permit had several conditions relating to access, which were specific to that 54th Avenue North site. So since it's moved, those issues no longer exist, so those were all taken out of the draft conditional use permit. There have been no documented complaints or violations against the property since the last conditional use permit was issued. And so this draft conditional use permit includes the following conditions. It's issued for a period of 10 years, and it provides for the storage of only the materials listed in the attachment, which are these few pages here, which I won't go through. But with that.
Read those
that's
in for
all
the
I had.
record? No, just kidding. Just kidding.
With that, that's all I had. Staff is recommending approval. I'll stand for any questions.
You answered my question on if they've maintained their conditional use well over the past years that they've had it. So anybody have any questions? Please, Mr. Kleva.
I'm fairly new to this, so forgive me, but it's been expired for 6 months. Is that normal, or did it get missed, or how did that happen, their permit?
They moved. So at some point between the last one and the new one, they did get moved, and we caught it. I want to say, I think you've been in conversation now with them for a couple months and just trying to get it moved over to this new spot.
To your point on the timeline, we do try to annually review all of the conditional use permits to make sure we don't, sometimes we're 6 months off, sometimes we are 3 months off. We do try to hit it annually. So that would be, I think, to your point.
Yeah, that's kind of my question, is it's got some kind of alert to start looking at a year ahead of time or whatever, but the change in address is kind of confusing to me. They do use both sites still. They are not storing dry fertilizer at the 54th Avenue site. I believe that's due to the elevator going out of operation there, which moved the train cars for them to unload the fertilizer. That elevator is starting to pick up operations again, so they are moving train cars there. What if they do start dry fertilizer again and want to start using that storage site for more than just office as they are right now? What's the advantage of not having this conditional use permit apply to both locations at once instead of we'll have to come back again if they want to start using the other one, so that we could maintain the conditions that are put in their place with the last one?
This only permits them now on this new location, which is on the east side of the tracks.
Yep.
If they were to try to start operations in that other one, it would require conditional use again, where we could put on the same conditions and perhaps other ones. And we'd notify the neighborhood, which we did, I think, 10 years ago and had that conversation. So
Right.
I don't know if that answered your question.
Well, sort of, it's just, what would stop them from using it again without the permit? They've been operating for 6 months without one right now.
Yep,
So
I understand.
why not?
Yeah, and it could fly under the radar because it would have to take a public, to be truthful, I think it would take probably somebody letting us know that they were operating again. And in the past, the township's been fairly active in letting us know. And I think that's, I know we commented and got comment back from the township here, Faulkner, and as well as Manville Fire. I know Sierra was in conversation with both of them. That's where we'd hope that we'd find out. We'd hope that people would ask that zoning question ahead of time and whether it's permitted ahead of time. That doesn't always happen, as we'll have that conversation here shortly, but sometimes those get missed and then we catch them, but it could happen. I don't want to say it's 100% won't happen, but we'll keep an eye out, but eyes are usually somebody giving us a call.
Sounds good, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kleva. Any further questions? I'll open the public hearing. Anybody in the audience want to step up and address 3.8? Please do so at this time. Not seeing anyone, we'll close the public hearing, bring it back to the commission.
Move approval.
Moved by Mr. Kleva.
Second.
Second by Mr. Reichert. Any further discussion? Not seeing any hands. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Unanimously passes. 3.8. 3.9.
Mural at North Dakota Vision Services School for the Blind located at 500 Sanford Road.
Mr. Brooks.
Thank you, Chair Wasvik. This item is, I think we had a conversation a little bit right at the start of the meeting, but I just want to provide some background on this one. I think 2018, we put the initial ordinance into place that at that time allowed commercial and industrial. In 2023, 2 years ago, not everybody that's on this commission was here for that, but that's when we had the request for murals to be allowed in residential, and then the
On the schools.
specifically on churches and schools is what was allowed. And at that time, Valley was the only request that we'd received up until now. And then I think it was a Friday afternoon a few weeks ago, probably 3 weeks ago or so, I was notified that mural had went up onto the School for the Blind building, which is 6th Avenue and Stanford Road. And so we did notify, I think it was in the afternoon, Friday afternoon, we let them know to kind of shut that down. I had a conversation with, subsequently to that, I got a call from Mr. Olson with School for Blind and said he apologized, he wasn't aware of the ordinance, and then after another, I think we got off a phone call, he understood that they were shut down. He called back and said, hey, can we, it's nearly complete, can we finish so I can at least let the artist go from there? I'd said that this isn't permission for the mural to stay. We are going to have to go through that process. But I said if it sounded like they were nearly done, go ahead is what I had said. And then consequently, we rescinded that on Tuesday. Had a conversation with him and he agreed, yes, we'll stop that. So to date, the mural is not done. There is a few things still to do on the mural. So I think, I know the clerk code has to go on, and then we've had some other conversations on items as well, that I think there are some other finishing touches the artist was hoping to do as well, as I understand it. So we did get the public hearing in, potentially maybe shouldn't have done that, but I apologize for that. But it was Friday, I think at 4:30, 4:45 that went out, and that was the deadline for the Herald. So we were trying to react quickly, as we usually do, to try to do the right thing. So so today, what we have is the mural did go up. It is located on the side facing 6th Avenue. What normally would happen in this case, we would have had they would have come in, they would have had a conversation with us, we would have told them what was in the ordinance, and we would have said, this does require planning and zoning and city council approval. We also would have indicated to them some changes that we would have required with the mural. With North Dakota Vision Services, the name would have had to come off that to meet the ordinance. We also would have directed them to another side of the building, because when we put this in 2 years ago, it was very specific in the ordinance where those could go on the property. So just trying to treat everybody the same when we have those discussions. So the residential is specific in this case, that requires planning commission and city council. Commercial industrial are done through a little bit different process, and we know that the downtown's a little bit different as well in terms of some of those that have gone up, and those have followed through a separate process. So with that, I know that there's going to be lots of questions in terms of potentially the mural itself, and I know city attorney has provided a memo to you as well in terms of process as well for this potential mural as well. So
we got her from here. So I guess any questions from the commission for Mr. Brooks, comments, anything before I decide to open something up here?
I'll just make a comment.
Please, go ahead. That's
But I hope that we can look at this and discuss this as the ordinance that we have and where the mural is, because this is not about content or about whether or not this is a beautiful painting. It's quite lovely. That's not what we're here to discuss. We're here to discuss whether or not it should remain where we don't allow murals.
Thank you, Ms. Sandy. And just some ground rules as well. We are a volunteer commission. We all have lives. We all have things to do, and you guys do as well. So we're gonna limit the comments to when we start repeating ourselves. Don't be offended, but we're gonna cut it off. New subjects, new ideas I get, but it does come down to kind of the letter of the law and how we all read it. So with that, I will open up the public hearing, and anybody who'd like to step up to the microphone, please state your name and address for the record, please.
Hi there. Sarah Galbraith, and I am in Ward 7 via 21st Street. So, good evening, Council President Sandy, members of the Planning and Zoning Commission. I'm here to support the mural for North Dakota Vision Services. I'm hoping we also see your support for their request for the mural to continue being an amazing addition to their neighborhood. I know that you've all seen and appreciate the various arts in our city and how they bring pride to each of us. Those who have worked so hard to bring this mural to life, as well as the faculty of North Dakota Vision Services, are wonderful people, and they work very hard to bring the best services they can provide. I find it very difficult to fathom that any of them would have circumvented the system to bring the mural to life. The mural updates that should have been updated on the website since it changed 2 years ago is easily fixed, but North Dakota Vision Services should not have to adjust one brick, as the fault is from the lack of updates. Should not have to adjust one brick, as the mural is perfect as designed. It's a simple question of, if we already know that the fault is from the lack of updates, then why are we putting all the blame on the North Dakota Vision Services and not thanking them for pointing out this error, and also for the fact they're bringing beauty to the community?
So one comment on that, just so you know, if we wouldn't have changed the ordinance in 2023 that did not get on the website, they wouldn't have been allowed on a school at all. So the ordinance that is not posted on the website, correct me if I'm wrong, fellas, and Miss Andrea, but so that's a tough part. I just want to make sure that we're all honest or even on, and what you know, because we're up here doing this, but if you'd have followed the old code, they're not allowed on a school at all or a church. So we upped the code for them to be allowed with conditions.
Okay.
So just so you know.
All right.
Yep.
Let's see here. Obviously, with the social media in this room, you see the support that's making. I understand that. And I love the fact that you did say that the content was beautiful. So thank you for that. And the fact that we've all agreed on this part. We should be thankful, though, that the error was found and we can move on. Because, again, have we ever had permit info for each mural that's happened in the city? Don't worry, I'm not asking you to, because there's over 100 murals in the city. I'm not asking you to bring out the permits for each one. We would be here way past my class time. But the question now is, has a mural been destroyed due to any miscommunication? And now we need to start digging and see what variances or grandfathered in type of ways we've saved murals so that we can utilize the ordinance, as you said, has been changed, but also so that we can come to a conclusion to help bridge this. So that is my solution, is looking into the grandfathered areas and the variances that have been given already, and then putting forth, trying to find a solution here. Does that make sense?
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Well said.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just as always, please state your name and address for the record.
Chairman Wasbeck and members of the commission. My name is Paul Olson. I am the superintendent at North Dakota Vision Services since 2013, but I've been there since June 1st of 1991, which included 2 times trying to move us out of Grand Forks, and we're still on our corner. I do very much appreciate the hard work that you folks are doing. I've only been a resident of Grand Forks for a couple of years, but I've been an employee of the state for many, many years. And in our 10.5 acres, we've become a little bit accustomed to, doing a lot of projects, roof projects, a major renovation of Community High School. That was a brand new project for me when I started. That said, in becoming very zealous, when I became excited about adding a mural, it was all about public awareness. We take a lot of effort throughout the state because we provide services across the state. I have 6 7 regional offices around the state. Our headquarters is in Grand Forks, where we have groups of children and adults of different ages that come in for training throughout the year. We reach just a fraction of the people statewide that are visually impaired. In Grand Forks alone, over the last 30 years, I can probably think of about 100 Grand Forks residents that have had macular degeneration or other forms of visual impairment that we've served directly. Now that said, there's been a lot of support for North Dakota Vision Services. And I want to acknowledge, Ms. Sandy, your comment again about it's not about the content of the mural. Although, and I do recognize that if we had approached planning and zoning early on with a request for approval, I don't think we would have met, by most people's interpretation, the letter of the law and how the ordinance is written. It was unintentional. I think that's been established. And I did provide a letter to you folks, it's in your packets, that gives a little bit of background. And thank you, Mr. Brooks, for giving some background. At this point, I would love perhaps to see a little bit more liberal interpretation or even wording in the ordinance, but that's not what I'm here today for. What I'm simply doing is wanting to explain, we got into this position. We've had a lot of support for it, which I appreciate. We are very, very good neighbors, not only in our neighborhood, but the entirety of Grand Forks. I think I've explained even in the letter that I provided the support that we provide to the community, driver's education, support of community high school, collaboration with the university and Grand Forks Public Schools. At this point, I'll only be out $5,500 if we are forced to paint over it. That's a loss, we can move on. We're about providing services to the residents of North Dakota. And I'm going to be putting billboards up along interstates in North Dakota before long. I lobby the legislature for dollars to do public awareness. This, I am hoping, as you folks discuss this and move forward, that you'll exercise some discretion. Yes, we did fall outside of the letter of intent with this ordinance, and I recognize that. What I'm hoping is that you see the greater good that will come from perhaps brightening some people's day as they pass by the mural. That's one thing. And I love that. I love public art. But my intent was to provide good public awareness, put us on the map. I always say when I describe to people about where North Dakota Vision Services is, I don't say we're down the road from the Ralph Engelstad. I say the Ralph Engelstad is down the road from us. So you folks have a tough job. I don't know what to expect tonight. When you vote on this, you're going to probably look at the letter of the law. There is some degree of discussion into interpretation. And I guess I would point out as well, I didn't know that there was discussion and controversy 2 years ago. Kind of stepped into that. Whatever this leads to, do your good work. We're going to continue to do our good work. And if it does lead to a little bit more of a liberal interpretation and a few more works of public art that crop up around Grand Forks within ordinance, then I think that's a good thing. So good luck in the work that you have to do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just ask him a question?
Yeah, Mr. Reichert has a question.
Yeah, I mean, as long as you're the director, I mean, it seems best to deal with you on this. So, obviously, you deal with students, you deal with people, you're in charge of the safety of people.
Yes.
We're also in charge of the safety of people. The reason we don't want them facing the road is we don't want people distracted, right? I mean, that's the whole idea. We don't want people looking at your beautiful mural. It's actually worse if the mural's nicer. It makes more of a problem.
Right.
So when I'm thinking about that, because that's what's holding me up here, right? And I'm just going to be honest with you so that you can direct your information to me. I don't care as much that you missed the deadline. I care about that it's facing the street. How should I think about that? Why should I not be worried about your mural facing the street when that was one of the things that we were looking at?
You know, at 6th and Stanford, that's a 4-way stop sign controlled intersection. For 20 plus years, I've taught people how to use cane skills. That was my profession. I'm a certified orientation and mobility instructor. For all of those years, when I have worked with people at that intersection especially, because that's our closest intersection, I said, motorists are unpredictable. I said, you get that cane out there, it's a fantastic tool. It's not just for finding drop-offs and obstacles, it's to alert drivers. I'm very well aware that distraction can be an issue. When you're driving down 13th and you're coming westbound and you see the Lewis and Clark School, that angles off towards traffic and people are going to view it. I think when you have something directly abutting a major roadway, there is a potential for distraction. I would contend the same thing exists when you come over the the Demers overpass and you see electronic signage. There's distraction around us everywhere. I do acknowledge your point. I think traffic traveling at a reasonable speed there, whether they're approaching the stop sign or whether they've come through the intersection, will glance. They should be going less than 20 miles per hour. But good point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Great point, Mr. Reichert. Ms. Sandy? Ms. Sandy?
I'd like to ask a question of you two, if I could.
Let's get them back. We'll just keep you up here
Yeah,
until you get tired.
Expanded my 5 minutes. Okay.
I don't know, I don't have a timer on you.
Great.
So I understand what you're saying now, and that Lewis and Clark mural has been there far before we were talking
Yes.
about murals on schools, so that one's hard. But my concern is when someone else wants a mural and we allow this, then someone else paints a mural that may not be as beautiful as your mural, and it's going to be, but you let them keep it. And so that's where I struggle. I also struggle with, when we passed that in 2003, the argument was one person's art maybe isn't another's, and I've heard from others in the neighborhood who don't like the mural. They just don't, and that's just how art is. And so, you know, I recognize there are a lot of apartments in that, or rentals in that neighborhood. There are also a lot of owner-occupied homes, and those are a very large investment for people. Your house is your largest investment. And so it's hard for me personally to say, yeah, I guess you made a mistake and you can keep it. Sorry, homeowner, they went against the rules, and I'm sorry that you feel that this has hurt the value of your property. So it puts us in a really difficult position. In a perfect world, well, actually, in a perfect world, we wouldn't have murals in residential areas anywhere. It would stay commercial and industrial, but that's for a different part of this meeting for me to comment on. I'm not sure exactly how to move forward with this, but it would be, again, in my not so perfect world, if that artist who is actually a mural artist, I'm not sure exactly, I believe that same artist had to go through an approval process for an East Grand Forks mural that was done through DDA and had to make some changes. So in my personal opinion, you hired a professional. I don't hire an electrician and think that they don't know the rules, right? So I don't put this on the School for the Blind. You hired someone who should have known the rules, maybe did, maybe didn't, don't know.
And
If
I should
could
have known the rules as well.
Well-
So I'll accept, that. And I do absolutely acknowledge that it's very dangerous to set a precedent because, again, it opens a can of worms, which it's been well established, and it's just all, out there for everyone to interpret themselves. I was very zealous. We sought this. We had a team. We were trying to promote our services. And now that said, my hope in all of this is, again, that there's good discourse between residents and leaders, and to the degree that procedurally that it does not fit. You're allowing us to address you even procedurally, that may not have been the most appropriate thing. But what I would contend is that it is within due process, because you have authority and will have authority in the future. If someone does run up against the ordinance and outside of it, just like you do now, you have the discretion and authority to vote no in your good conscience and wanting to protect the community. I am hoping that it leans toward, when it gets to council, retaining it, because I think it does serve the public good. But I understand the technicality and the challenge that it is not wanting to set a precedent.
Okay,
Have
any
you
more,
asked- I'm
any more
sorry.
questions?
Have you asked the artist if he would be willing to paint this on an approved side of your building as approved, as he just painted this somewhere
That'd
that
come
wasn't
up,
approved?
And again, I will admit my naivete, but to me, I only wanted it on the facing. Naive as that might have been, that's where I was going to get public exposure. Yeah, but good question. Thank you.
I guess I have another question. One of the things we also don't do is we don't let people advertise. You're clearly
Yes.
advertising, you brought that up. If we pass this, but say you have to take that off, would you be okay with that?
One thing I offered in the letter requesting approval is that our word, the name of our school is North Dakota Vision Services School for the Blind. That is embedded in a portion, and that itself, I would be very happy to have that painted over. It would retain the the beauty of the mural and still accomplish what I was hoping to accomplish, but then it would be closer to matching the letter of the law in the ordinance. I'd be very happy to do that. We do have a sign that is separate at the corner of that building that does identify us.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Any more questions? Will, anybody else want to step up to the mic and address this item? Please do so. State your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, thanks for the time that we can speak. I'm Trey Everett. I'm the artist who designed and created the mural at 500 Stanford Road. And I can address your question specifically. But first, I just wanted to say a little bit about the origin of the mural. So in early January, Mr. Olson, the superintendent who just spoke, contacted me through email and said, hey, I just saw your piece on Prairie Mosaic about your mural work and artwork. And then he checked my website and he said, I really like your style and we're thinking about putting up a mural at Vision Services School for the Blind. And would you be interested? And I said, definitely. So we set up a Zoom meeting on January 15th. And so I met with Mr. Olson and some staff members at the Zoom meeting, and we talked about the possibilities of a mural. Then on February 13th, I came to the site. That was my first time to Vision Services School for the Blind. And they gave me this great tour of the facility, their gym, their kitchen, the library, the meeting rooms, the rooms where people stay all night and or spend a few days there at camps. And it was great. I mean, I learned a lot. We're walking down a hallway and there's carpet tile. And Mr. Olson says, do you know what that's for? And I'm like, no. And he said, that's for people who are visually impaired. They know where a doorway is every time they hit the tile. We go into the library and they're showing me all of their equipment. I put on some AI glasses for the first time and Mr. Olson says, look at this poster and ask it to read it to you. And I ask it and these glasses, it's got a little mic in it and it just reads exactly what's on the poster. In fact, you can have paper money in your hand. Is this a 5, 10, or 20? It will tell you. Even just looking at Mr. Olson, I could say, who's in front of me? And it said, middle-aged man who's about so tall. Yeah, so it was great. So I learned all this stuff. Mr. Doctor took me into the kitchen and said, okay, here's how you use a burner if you're visually impaired. Here's you're cooking pasta tonight. He hands me 2 cans. He says, one of this is tomato sauce, the other is green beans. How do you know the difference? And, you learn to shake it, and there's other techniques for that. So anyway, it was great. And then we sat down at the meeting, and, I've got my notes right here. So they said, we want to have a meadowlark in there, a prairie rose. We want to have somebody using a cane, possibly. We would like to have some braille in there. Some words that came up were independence, confidence. They wanted the mural to be positive and to be bright. And then maybe to have some tools that they use, like magnifying glass, dark glasses, a cane, things like that. So I went back to work on the designs on April 21st. I sent them 8 images to look at, 4 in color, 4 in black and white. I gave little descriptions also. Image 1, this fun, bright image is simple while conveying movement and journey. I added in the words community, independence.
Sir, we gotta move this along. We've already discussed that the content, there's no problem.
Okay.
How we got to the content, no problem. I just seeing everybody's kind of, big crowd, a lot of people want to get their words in, and we got to get to the point.
Sure. Okay.
Thank you very much. Sorry to be that way, but we just got to keep
Okay.
moving. We understand you were hired, did a job. A lot of people think it's beautiful. Here we are.
Okay. Can I address Mr. Reichert's question?
Sure.
So the mural specifically, when you paint an outdoor mural, you have to keep a few things in mind. And one thing is, how does it look from a distance? And so this mural was designed very specifically to be bright, but also to be very simple. And so you have a big pink flower, the prairie rose, you have a yellow bird, you've got a rainbow, you've got a sunburst. And so when you're driving your kids to school and it's a busy morning, that mural is designed that you can turn your head and look back and you've got it. You saw it. It's not a Where's Waldo mural. You're not looking for 50 things. There's not a whole bunch of words and phrases all over it, like song lyrics or a poem, and you're trying to read it. It's not designed to be that way. Indoor murals, sure, but not this one. Not outdoor murals. And I specifically designed it that way. And it's designed that you can, if you're walking on the sidewalk, you can actually stop and take in the details and see the little hidden words like courage and independence in there and appreciate it. And so to address your particular question, yes, it was designed so it won't be a distraction.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
Well, I'm
ahead.
just curious because did you have to get a permit for the mural that you did in East Grand Forks?
No.
But you had to go through the DDA?
The DDA hired me, yes.
And then they had requirements that needed to be changed of the mural? I visited with a member of the DDA.
Sure.
Who told me that there was a process that needed to be followed in order to do that. She said it was a permitting process, but, and that there were changes that had to be made to the mural. You don't, but.
There were changes that had to be made, but less than the one I did for Vision Services. The changes were just between me and Ross Heyer, the other artist, and the DDA, and simply the changes were, hey, can you add a buffalo in there? Or a moose, I mean. Or, hey, can you put this instead of this up here, can you put it down there? Those were the changes, just like at Vision Services when we went back and forth.
Thank you.
I didn't have to worry about any permitting.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Anybody else would like to address please step up, state your name and address for the record.
Sure. My name is Liz Legursky. I live at 3125 Belmont Road. And I am here today to argue for support. I'd like to ask you to support and recommend approval for the School of the Blind's application for their mural. I've lived in Grand Forks for 15 years, and although I live in Ward 4, I actually work in Ward 1. And I have friends who live near the mural, and I also have children with friends near the mural. We're there frequently in that neighborhood. In fact, I just went walking with a friend there the other day. We took a selfie in front of it because we were so impressed by it. I'm actually a sociologist by training, and so I often engage in community research, and I wanted to share with you just really briefly some of what the existing research shows about the impact of community art, and specifically murals, on neighborhood communities. A number of years ago, there was a Porchlight initiative, which was launched actually in Philadelphia, and the purpose was bring together local artists, service providers, community members to erect large murals in distressed neighborhoods. And the idea behind that was to address stigmatized issues, including things like mental health, substance abuse, homelessness, etc. And these murals depicted local experiences and concerns, just like this mural does that we're talking about today. And the goal was to build community connectedness, understanding, resilience, and reduce stigma. The Yale University Medical School then studied the impact of these murals and in 3 of the communities over several years. And what they found was pretty cool, I think. The study showed that there were significant positive effects in the neighborhoods where these murals were installed. Within 1 year, residents reported these were all residents who lived within 1 mile of a newly installed mural. They reported greater collective efficacy, including social cohesion and trust among their neighbors, as well as an increased perception of informal social control. They also reported an increase in neighborhood aesthetic quality, better walking environment, ratings of specific buildings went up, and there were also better perceptions of neighborhood safety. There was also a decrease in feelings of stigma towards the individuals that were featured in these murals as well. The researchers went back after 2 years and they found that these similar findings were repeated even years later. And so they talked to the residents of these areas and they asked them how they felt about the murals, and they validated the findings from the surveys. These murals enhanced neighborhood aesthetics. They lessened neighborhood decay. They also found them to be inspiring and emotionally uplifting, and they felt that they assisted in building community. Other studies have shown similar things, that public art makes spaces feel more cared for, makes them more active, attractive, and inviting for both residents and also visitors, and thus it increases feelings of safety. And it also improves people's mental health and then in turn their physical well-being. My understanding is, I know we've heard here people say, well, we don't want to set precedent, we need to follow policy, but just in the item before this, we heard about a 6-month lapse in a permit, right? And this commission seemed pretty forgiving of that lapse. And so I would like to ask you to exercise that same flexibility in something like this, right? We can have that same level of compassion. We can have that same level of flexibility. What a waste of time and resources it would be to remove something that has the potential to raise such an important awareness about such an important organization in our community. What if this mural could help build greater empathy and reduce stigma towards the blind? What if this mural could help increase the sense of neighborhood connectedness, lift the moods of passerbys, and reduce perceptions of decay, and foster a greater sense of community pride? Previous research tells us that this is what murals do, and you have the opportunity to help to support that. So I'd like to encourage you to sort of think about that and show your compassion and your flexibility as you have just previously to this item, and do the same for this instance as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just to stop it a second, just so everybody knows, we sat here in 2023, most of us, a lot of us are on this committee, and we had the whole Valley School Arts Department, remember? Valley Middle School, teachers, kids, everything, come in and ask us and plead us that they could do a mural, on their school. I'm having trouble. A mural on their school that's being torn down at the end of this year. And we probably discussed this thing for a couple hours on 2 different meetings and went through the whole thing. We settled with them doing a temporary mural. That's where the ordinance came into effect. That at some point is already off the building at this point. I drove by it today. And there's talk of them planning on putting it inside the school. The children made the mural for their school that was being torn down, that they, whatever, and in hopes of a new school. And the mural, again, like this one, is very cool, very neat, everything. But they went through the process. And these are teachers and school children that went through this process and came before this commission, and they actually got an ordinance changed. They actually put forth enough effort to get an ordinance changed. So if we're going to keep going, I want to hear something that's going to sway me. I mean, we understand the murals. A lot of the same things you guys have read and said, we heard in the Valley discussions. So I'm with you, but like Megan said, one person's art isn't another person's art if they're living across the street from it. And we've, on this commission, have received just as many phone calls in opposition as we have seen support for it. So please, name and address for the record. I just wanted to state that and get it off my chest, so. On what happened, how this ordinance came into play is what I wanted to just explain to you guys.
Sure. My name is Laura Slaughog Hawley. I live at 1766 South 34th Street in Grand Forks, North Dakota. I just wanted to speak to the fact that ordinances change, laws change. Like, I wonder about the existence of the mural on, Lewis and Clark School, how that came to be. And the fact that there is this ordinance now that's only allowing schools and churches to have murals, and how that I've heard discussion, at least, or read in the paper, that there are some members of the zoning committee who are talking about, removing the possibility of churches and schools having murals in the future. And you just had somebody who specializes in sociology talking about how public art creates a better community. So I also want you to consider that while you are talking about removing this mural, and also talking about going through things the right way, thinking about how public art in general enhances the community. And I do understand that it's important to go through the process of doing things the correct way. And I think there's a lot of us here who weren't aware of what happened in 2023. They weren't aware of the temporary mural on South Middle School. And it's sad to hear that they only got approval for a temporary mural that's about to be removed. So I think that's something to think about, is what the general attitude here is towards art in residential neighborhoods, and why we're only allowed to have it in business areas, when I think art itself, like you said, is something that's very subjective. So if there is a community that feels strongly about, wanting to have it in their neighborhood, why not? So it's just as you have had just as many phone calls about people opposing it. I looked at a recent poll in the Herald, and it was about 1,000 people. 76% in the Herald newspaper were in favor of the mural, according to that Grand Forks Herald poll. So I think taking into the accounts of your constituents, their opinions, how the general community feels about the mural is very important as you think about your decision. So as I said, laws can change, things have changed. We've had murals on schools before in other areas, so I just thought that was important to consider as well. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah.
Hello, my name is Ryan King. I am a resident of Ward 2. I've lived in Grand Forks my entire life, and today I'm here to request your support for the mural, which I drive past on my way to work every day and has provided my 3-year-old daughter with a great deal of joy over the last few weeks. Just as you are here as representatives of the people of Grand Forks, I am here at the bequest of a very passionate toddler. Miss Sandy said at the beginning of this meeting that this was a meeting about the legality of the mural and not whether people like it. After hearing the legal arguments tonight and over the last week, it seems clear that we are in a gray area when it comes to policy, and if I were you, I would take advantage of that gray area. If anybody is at fault here, it feels like this is a failure on the part of the city to make the process for application clear and easy, rather than any failure on the part of a North Dakota Vision Services or the artist. And yet, rather than extending grace to the community that this council is supposed to serve, certain city council members have lambasted our most well-meaning people with vulgar and demeaning remarks. If there was any accountability for actions in Grand Forks, this representative would face consequences for speaking to a constituent in this way. I'm a teacher, and if one of my students spoke that way to another student, there is no way they would be allowed to maintain a position of leadership. But time and again, we have seen Grand Forks representatives engage in threats of violence, dangerous driving under the influence of alcohol, and felony crimes, and we have seen them rewarded with positions of power in spite of their mistakes. Many here tonight would say that faith in our elected leaders is at an all-time low. So often it seems like elected officials take the side of business when it lies within a gray zone, but when regular people need your help, we have to follow the letter of the law. But you have an opportunity to claw back some of that faith tonight by scoring an easy PR win tonight. The legal argument against the allowance of the mural is Byzantine at best, and the arguments in favor of it are numerous and varied. I hope you'll take advantage of this gray zone, this opportunity to take accountability for a lack of clarity on the part of the city, make Grand Forks more beautiful in the process, and give my 3-year-old something to cheer about when we go to school in the morning. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I think at this time, unless there's something really new to say, I think we'll close the public hearing.
Okay.
And bring it back to the commission. I'm going to cut you off if it's not. How's that? Because we gotta vote on it. We gotta do all that. We still got an agenda to go through.
Heck yeah, you do. Important work. My name is Sarah Grossbauer. I live on North 53rd Street, so the northwest corner of town. I get the pleasure of driving past the mural every day, but that's neither here nor there. Something that really concerns me is this, as Paul stated, he went to the state legislature and he lobbies for dollars to use to create public awareness around the North Dakota Vision Services. He paid for this mural with state dollars. The removal of it, I'm going to assume, would be put back on Vision Services to cover the cost of that with state dollars. So we're doubling down on our taxpaying dollars when we know they're short. We're losing federal funding. Our schools aren't going to be able to fund their school lunch programs. You know, the budgets are tight. I think this is a really good opportunity for us to consider that these are taxpayer dollars that were used. I wish we were here before anything was painted on a wall, you know? Unfortunately, that's not the case, but I think that's another angle to look at. You know, these were all of ours. You know, I'm assuming most of us in here have worked in the last year or pay Social Security tax or some sort. You know, these are our dollars that we would have to use to remove a pretty awesome mural, in my personal opinion. And so
You know what, I gotta commend you. You did come up with something different.
Thank you. I told you I would.
Thank you.
That's just something to consider.
Thank you very much, and you did pull it off. Well, step up to the microphone.
All right,
Well,
Brian Lane,
we might
Grand Forks
be-
citizen. Well, I got a little problem about all this stuff, you know? Can I go out and paint up a rainbow? Can I do it right now? On your streets, on your walls right now? Can I do it? Somebody broke the law here, right? Can I do that now? Yeah, but if I want to do this, I want to do it right. I want to do a rainbow with 7 colors. I want to do it with my Christian belief. I said Grand Forks citizen. I'm a Grand Forks citizen. I'm a Grand Forks citizen. Under the Fifth Amendment, I'll say it that way.
Please, you got, everybody, let's
Right.
just
But I'm
keep it
just saying,
calm.
No,
Keep it
no.
calm.
I
Keep it
want to
calm.
say this. I want to say this.
Keep it calm, everybody.
Okay, right. If I want to paint a rainbow, right? Can I paint it the right way right now? Can I? Can I just go out there and
Depending on where you paint it.
But is it an ordinance? Did he break the law?
Yep.
Did he get permission? That's
No.
what I'm saying. Okay. My case is rest. The government should protect our rights, not promote them. Remember that when you guys vote.
Thank you. All right, please, let's have some order here. Hey, I'm gonna cut it off real quick.
no, it's
just so you know, because it's
incredibly
gonna
brief.
get out of hand if I don't control it,
No,
as you can see.
Yeah, of course.
So real
super
quick,
brief.
sir.
No, appreciate
Please state
it.
your name and
Yeah,
address
my
for the
name's Cale
record.
Stroup. I live on North 6th Street, just downtown here. Reflecting what Mrs. Grossbauer, Mr. King said, I largely agree with that. I guess I got one sort of question. Committee member Sandy, are you abstaining from this vote as well, considering there's like a direct conflict of interest and your comments would be personally involved with the matter? Do you own property, like just right? But right there, like directly in the vicinity of the school?
And I'm a citizen here, and I have no fiduciary gain or loss from this mural, so I am fine vote. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, Mr. Reichert abstained as well, so it's just curious.
I'm not abstaining from this vote. I abstained from votes on the development at 42nd and 17th because I own part of that land.
I gotcha.
Okay? I, like Ms. Sandy, own rental properties around this town. Some of them are very close to this mural.
Yeah.
The question when you say somebody has a conflict of interest, Ms. Sandy was passionate about what she said. That doesn't make it a conflict, okay? A conflict means that I'm going to gain somehow, or somebody in my family is going to gain from something.
Yeah.
Okay? I'm not going to gain, I assume Ms. Sandy isn't going to gain. So just because we have opinions doesn't mean we have a conflict.
Okay.
She and I disagree on this, but I think she should be able to vote.
That makes complete sense. Thank you for clarifying that. I guess just like the same way we were talking about art being subjective, like that could either directly value or devalue the property that in the vicinity that you own it, depending on your opinion on it, right?
Mr. Gosted?
You want me to answer the question whether you got a conflict?
Well, yeah, I genuinely am curious, I guess, is just the idea.
The way the law reads is that if you've got a pecuniary interest in the outcome of how you vote, pecuniary interest means you're either going to financially gain, meaning you'll make some money off it, or you won't lose money, depending on what the outcome of the vote is.
Okay.
What I understand is Miss Sandy's baby has some property in the area. I don't see whether a mural financially makes any difference to Miss Sandy or not. The other, from a pecuniary interest standpoint, the other standpoint is that when you're sitting on a governmental body, the law also requires that you vote. And if you don't vote, you're deemed to have been in the majority, whatever that vote is. And so the disclosure of the conflict can be made, and the other non-conflicted members can allow that person to continue to participate and vote, is the way the law reads. So
It's a recusal process.
I don't treat Ms. Sandy's ownership as being a conflict that would even necessitate a vote. Neither would I with Mr. Reichert. I don't see that as necessitating a vote. I don't see that as a conflict.
Thank you for clarifying that. I was genuinely curious. I had a comment, but it largely reflects what much else has
All
been
right,
said, so thank
thank you. I think with that, unless there's,
No.
okay. I'm tired.
I know you are, but you're old.
I would like to address one comment made before about the safety.
Please state
of the
your
mural.
name and record for the address.
Michael Ozaki, I'm on 32nd Street in Grand
I
Forks.
said that wrong.
My children also go to school in the vicinity, and I have family that works within this vicinity. One question that came up about the safety of the mural. I'm wondering if there is any direct evidence that murals create a traffic issue or safety.
Lots.
We sat with the Valley Middle School deal and went over hours of reports that it was directly conflicts with safety, driving and walking across the street.
Okay.
More so than a billboard would be.
More so than a
And we
billboard.
spend hours and hours on our
We did.
sign code committee discussing the distraction of billboards and murals, which I would want to say that I think this mural is much larger than a billboard.
Yeah, I think the billboards we found didn't, or is the evidence that we had didn't have an effect.
Okay. I just feel the need to point out that there are also conflicting studies. I originally am from Philadelphia. There's often large studies about effects of traffic with the many murals that they have there. And one of the consistent findings within those areas is that when they do crash analysis, that it doesn't increase the number of traffic accidents or pedestrian instances. And actually, there tends to be a 17% reduction in speeds when a new mural goes up, as long as the subject of the mural is not directly confrontational or what some would see as offensive, which I think this mural falls into line of that. And so I would question how much public safety issues that it actually brings up, along with the benefit that it possibly has for the community and the enjoyment of the people who are in the vicinity.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll make it quick. My name's Eric Castle. I live just a couple blocks away on Columbia Road. And I had a question for Mr. Brooks. So there's a process for the murals in a residential district and a different process for murals in a commercial district. My understanding is this mural's in a university zoning. And what's the process for that? Is that different than residential or commercial for a mural?
The university district is a residential district, so that's how we treat this one.
Okay.
Commercial actually isn't allowed in the university district unless it's, yeah, okay.
Okay. And Mr. Reichert, your concern was about safety and distraction. As I mentioned, my house is on Columbia Road. I drive down Columbia Road right past the front of the Ralph, and there's a big electronic billboard right in front of that sign. I almost have to put on sunglasses at night because that sign is so bright. My bedroom window faces that sign. I have to make sure the blinds are down before I go to bed, and I'm like a quarter mile away from that sign.
So what if the guy that owns the house, is the guy that owns the house across the street here, by the way? So what, you say there's a bright light coming through your window. What if it's an ugly window outside of your kitchen sink? What if it's an ugly painting right where you wash your dishes every night and you got to look at it and it wasn't there when you bought the house?
I would argue that there's a lot of ugly buildings, like
But it wasn't there when you
investment
bought the
properties
house.
going up. going up in my neighborhood, a lot of investment properties
We're gonna
going up
shut it down.
that I think are ugly. You know, but as far as art is concerned, we're not allowed to censor what is going in art. As long as it's not, you know, publicly indecent and passes the, you know, the North Dakota Code, we're not allowed to censor that art. So if the concern is about distracted driving, why aren't we looking at these billboards that is right in front of a crosswalk? And at nighttime, that light is shining in your eyes.
Just so
and
you
that's
know,
very concerning.
everyone is looked at here. And then
Sure.
it goes to city council and looked at again by another set of eyes. So every billboard, just so you got, just so you know.
Right.
Yeah, it is, and it's studied before we get it from the MPO and from the staff. It comes to us, it's studied again, it goes to city council, it's
Right.
studied. So all the billboards are, and believe me, this committee's pretty split on signage and billboards. We vote different ways every time.
Sure. I understand, I understand, but the concern is distraction, but we allow that, which is much more distracting than what this billboard is. So I'm asking for a variance of that there. Also, to address Ms. Sandy's question about property values and murals, studies show that property values increase when there are murals in neighborhoods. They create a stronger sense of community, but actually property values go up in neighborhoods that embrace murals and community art. Thank you very much.
Okay, hey, thanks for your comments. Please state your name and address for the record.
Veronica Hansen, 5102 Ellis Circle. I live on District 42, and I go by artist Veronica Mask. What I want to say is when you speak, I'm sorry, what was your name, sir?
Alex Riker.
Alex Riker, when you speak about the mural being ugly and the people that live around seeing that, okay, what about?
I never said the mural was ugly.
No,
I
I
actually
said,
think it looks nice.
I said you spoke about that, like some people could say that, and you said it very loudly, you said ugly. Okay, didn't we just speak earlier, you guys, on an apartment being built somewhere that was going to cause ugly beer cans, people peeing, people destroying? Didn't you just talk about that? Yes? Keep that in mind. That's all I want to say.
Thank you very much. All right.
I'll try to keep this brief.
Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Brendan Swanson, and I live at 2606 9th Avenue South, Grand Forks, North Dakota. Mr. Chair Wasvik and Commissioners, I have lived in Grand Forks most of my life. I am one neighbor among dozens who have come tonight because a routine sign matter has been elevated to an apparent civic firefight over zoning laws. The rule, your code limits murals directly abutting a public right-of-way. The wall at North Dakota School for the Blind faces a right-of-way, and the property sits in a university district. Even though that is residential, my understanding is that that's exactly the circumstance this body exempted when it expanded the ordinance for schools and churches last year. Is that correct, or is that incorrect?
That's incorrect.
Okay, sounds good. The context around it, though, Councilor Rebecca Osowski, I'm going to say these names wrong. I saw an article that she commented that it was an expletive ugly on June 20th.
Sir, I don't want to get into what happened with somebody else and that whole mess. We're not political here. We're just a volunteer body.
Well, it's three separate statements from three separate people, three directions, yet we're told politics play no part. That's what's confusing about it to me. Tonight is the only time in my memory, you mentioned Valley City in that dialogue, that in our 100-plus city murals, that it's triggered 2 phone bank drives, residents in matching T-shirts, a full house here. I know that you had a lot of people for that discussion earlier as well. And a full-page Herald editorial debating its fate. A Herald poll of 1,000 readers was 76% in support. Is that pretty typical of every single mural of the 100-plus in our city? Is it pretty typical that one draws this much fire because of what some might perceive it could represent, it seems really unlikely that this isn't political or is completely devoid of politics. And then finally, the cost of all of this, right? So we have 3 stop work orders, 2 hearings, a looming council appeal, and staff hours that should be spent on infrastructure and growth. I think it was something like $1,000 or $2,000 just to have the time allotted tonight to discuss this topic. Speaking on that, with 14 other agenda items tonight, we're burning scarce funds on rhetoric, it feels like. The School for the Blind, sandblasting the wall and repainting the plain gray would cost about $4,000. I think the director mentioned it was a little bit more than that. So there are costs to having this apolitical dialogue. I have some questions to some of the objectors of it. You call Commissioner Reichert, you call the mural a driver distraction because it fronts a street, yet Valley Middle School, Skidmore Park, Lewis and Clark, what made those exceptions, or were they grandfathered in from previous lack of regulation?
We moved the Valley mural around the corner inside the, what do you call it, alcove? Yeah. So yes, we did, we're aware of that, and we moved that, had to move that mural before they put it up, because they came to us at the right time before it was done, and we worked with them to where it was still pleasing to the eye for the students and the faculty, but yet not a distraction.
Without a distraction, that's the important
So
point.
that answer your question?
Yeah, for sure. Commissioner Sand, you said, quote, "One person's art isn't another person's art," unquote. You also said, quote, "This isn't about the content," unquote. Which claim stands when removal hinges on somebody's dislike of the content?
I guess I don't exactly understand the question because what I had.
You're saying this is apolitical. You're saying the content of it doesn't really matter. It's more about
So quite
the
frankly, I'm
distraction.
going to vote on this whether I think it's a beautiful piece of art or if I don't think it's a beautiful piece of art, based on the fact that there was no gray area in this, that someone did state there was a gray area. There's no gray area. There is specifically a rule on the books that is less, what's online is more restrictive than what is actually the ordinance now. So the argument that it's on the city for not having the correct thing online makes no sense. There's no gray area here. So I'm not voting on whether or not I like the art. I'm voting on whether or not someone painted a mural where it wasn't supposed to go without asking permission and now is coming after the fact and asking for permission. And we have a room full of people who support this mural. And when one man stood up and spoke against the mural, he was chastised. When I have a property in the neighborhood, I had somebody come up and question my ability to vote on this. So do you know why we don't have anyone else in the room standing up here talking against the mural? That's why. I have gotten so many phone calls. I have gotten phone calls that said, I wish we didn't even have murals downtown. So I don't understand why this is even a gray area. And so I hope that helps with the, do I think it's art or do I not think it's art? I love art. I'm a huge fan of art. I love public art. I love private art. I have my own art. This is not about that. So I hope that answers your question.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, let's wrap it up. We're going to close the public hearing, bring it back to the commission.
I'll make a motion.
Please, Ms. Sandy.
I'll make a motion that unfortunately this mural was painted without permission. And there are very clear rules about this. And so I will make the motion that the art be removed from that area of the building. I also, in a separate motion, would like to have the ordinance changed back to where we were because this is exactly the issue that the discussion was based around when we passed that ordinance, allowing it on schools and churches. This is exactly the problem that I was afraid of, that many of us were afraid of in that long discussion.
So two separate motions. First
separate
motion.
motions.
First motion, do we have a second?
I will second.
Second by Ms. Sorrell. I think we should take this and vote on this one and bring up your second motion after that. Am I doing this right, Mr. Gosted? All right. So any further discussion on the murals? I know we haven't had a lot of time to talk, but Mr. Budke?
Yeah, I disagree with that motion. I think that, we need to, I think this mural deserves to stay. There's already been plenty of admission about, the process that wasn't followed correctly. But I'd like to just point out a couple things. Ryan, you spoke at the beginning about like how this ordinance has evolved over time. I had the same thought actually prior to the meeting. I went back through old notes since I've been on the commission, and I kind of retraced for my own sake how that evolved over time. This was a point that Ms. Hawley made. Just since I've been on the commission, in June of 2020, we granted an appeal, and that was to enable the mural that went onto the Opera House, right, the brewery. So there was an appeal that was granted in that case. In 2021, there was a major rewrite that looked at, took a more comprehensive look, and that's what enabled, at least by my reading, that's what enabled the Ghost Mural Coca-Cola one that just was completed this week, I believe. In June of 2023, that's when the Valley Middle School discussion happened. That's when we first introduced specifically this idea of the residential areas, or that language. But I'd like to point out, and I believe I pointed out then, that the distinction of residential versus commercial areas, that the murals that had already gone up downtown by that point, downtown is a residential area, though it is a B zone. I think that's a subtlety.
No. It's not. Andrew, we got to speak on
I lived in that building.
Yeah.
Also at that time, with the final version that was passed, the council actually expanded it beyond what was initially recommended out of this body. They actually went further than I would have. And it wasn't, now here we are, now it's 2025, and this whole discussion hinges on this idea of abutting the right-of-way. So in thinking back through this and looking back at the prior versions, I think we should consider that the language around directly abutting a right-of-way, I saw that as a legacy of this legal evolution, right? Like how this ordinance has changed over the better course of a decade. It started downtown where we have a particular building form where you've got a primary storefront facing the right-of-way, and we've exempted the alleyways. So I absolutely think that this should remain. There's been a lot of talk about precedent, not wanting to set the wrong precedent. I hear that. I agree with that on some level. So I'm reminded that there is a provision later in the code about fines, and I know the staff report asked us to comment on that. So I will not be voting for this particular motion. I would like to propose another solution, a compromise. I think that this mural should be able to remain in its current location. I think that this wall is really well suited for a mural like this, more so than the adjacent walls. The particulars around the lighting plan, the maintenance plan, and then the fines. I think that so that there is a proper precedent set here, I think we should recommend a fine that was within the limits of that ordinance. I think that should be $100, and I think that the suggestion to cover the North Dakota the text, the North Dakota Vision Services, that move forward as was recommended and by staff.
I think we have a motion and a second.
Yeah, we have a motion and a second. So.
Okay, well, I'll be.
If this one fails.
Yeah.
Okay, well, now we know.
Can I just clarify so that I understand? So the murals that he's referencing, those weren't residential neighborhoods, is that right? Those were in the commercial, industrial?
Yeah,
And that
the-
first one needed something because it was being put on a historic building.
Yeah.
I can't remember the particulars, but yeah, I think the ones that Dee mentioned were all.
Because that was
downtown.
Kaya Painting
That
who
was-
came
yeah.
in and explained that to us in his
So that wasn't about the mural itself, it was about putting it on the historic building.
historical building.
And those were all not in a residential area.
I lived in that building.
I understand that, but it's not zoned a residential area. Was that a residential property?
Yeah, we count the downtown buildings as commercial.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody else, any comments, questions? I don't see any more hands. I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
All right, motion passes. Yeah?
Yeah, it's just
absolutely.
Budke and I think.
Yeah.
Arel? Budke?
No.
Kleba?
Aye.
Holt?
Aye.
Mattson? Reichert?
No.
Sandy? Wasvik?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. With that, move on to communications and preliminary approval. Oh, wait a minute. Made a second, she made a second motion. I apologize.
Can I make that type of a motion tonight? Tonight?
Yes. And we have to add it as an agenda item later. Okay?
So I would like to make the motion that we go back to where we were before we changed the ordinance and restricting murals to the commercial and industrial area of Grand Forks.
Do we have a second?
If I second, we can have discussion on that, correct?
Correct.
Let me understand that. Okay, so I will second for discussion purposes, okay?
Okay.
Is it possible to, like, we're having billboard discussions, because we do have a moratorium on billboards, we're having a billboard discussion. Is it worthy for us to go back and have more detail on mural discussions? You know, do we pull back? Do we consider, I mean, we all agree art is all fine and dandy, but not everybody's art is the same, right? Maybe I don't like Meadowlarks, maybe I don't like elk, maybe somebody doesn't like, my Terry Redlands, whatever, I'm just,
So can I change my motion?
So maybe maybe let's go back and, because there is evolution in laws, there's evolution in ordinances, and so maybe this does offer up, again, some additional discussions for, I don't know if it wants to be part of our sign committee or something, but I guess maybe I would like to see a little bit of sign discussion, so.
So could I change the motion and ask the city council to look at the ordinance for murals? I think we've got a lot of, we have.
Well,
a lot
they
of
have to
committees.
anyway. I mean, we can't change ordinances
This
with this
goes-
body.
But they can discuss how they want the ordinance, because it has to go to them anyway.
Correct.
And we have lots of committees that we volunteer to be on currently.
You'd have to modify, excuse me, you'd have to modify your motion and
Okay.
make
Get a
sure that
second.
Ms. Sorrell
Yep.
agrees with
So
that.
I would like to make the motion that I would like to request that the council looks at the ordinance for,
Revisits what an ordinance is.
revisits the ordinance for murals in residential areas.
Do you second that, Ms. Rao?
Yes, please.
You're okay with that change? Any further discussion on that?
Yeah.
Mr. Reichert, Mr. Reichert, let's hear from you.
I'm going to vote against this. I think our thing is very clear. I think we spent a lot of time thinking about it. My concern was the location. I think that was assuaged by the fact that it was so close to a intersection, to a stop sign. If I made any change to this, I would make it so that it goes back to that there be some mechanism in there that we allow forgiveness for not knowing what the code was. But I'm going to vote against this. I think we've looked at this plenty. I think we understand the issues. I think the issues are well encapsulated within the ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. Reichert. Mr. Bucky?
Yeah, I don't think, believe I support this motion either. When we're saying the council's going to study, I mean, are we talking about a subcommittee like we've used to study other things, or is this just an agenda item on the council?
I think it would be good for their discussion, because clearly somewhere we have failed with this ordinance. Be it that people don't know that it's out there, or we don't have I didn't see, what is the repercussion for painting on a building without a permit?
There's fines.
Yeah, but
I
there's
mentioned
no
that.
designated fine.
No.
$10?
There's a range between $100 and $500.
That's for the maintenance, isn't it? That's not for.
That's not for-
That's a fine for maintenance, not maintaining the mural. I don't think, Mr. Budke, that's a fine for painting one where you're not
where
supposed
you
to.
shouldn't.
We can check with Dan. I think he's looking it up now.
He's looking it up. Furiously
Maybe,
looking
maybe
it up.
not even so much discussion as to changing the ordinance for the murals, but how do we better notify people before they put $5,500 into a new mural? Whose job is
Right.
that? Like,
I think there needs to be work on this entire ordinance, because clearly there's confusion. Someone spent $5,500 painting a mural, and half the people are thrilled with it, and half the people are not thrilled with it.
Like that nice person said, that's all of our money. That's our money too.
Yeah.
That's what you guys realize.
So this isn't about saying that, although my personal preference is that it not be allowed in residential, this isn't about taking it away. It's about making sure that we don't end up in this situation. And who's monitoring this, and who's deciding what's okay and what's not, and fines and all of those things.
Mr. Brooks, you're enlightening us?
Well, the only thing I'll say is I think I don't think they put this up because we put something in 2023, we amended the code. That's not the reason. The artist was very honest with me, didn't check. The ones who did the permit, they didn't check. It wasn't that it wasn't online, correct? They let me know. I believe them that they didn't look it up. If they had, they would have found out it wasn't permitted at all, because it just wasn't allowed up until 2 years ago. So I would really hate to throw this out as well. We put a lot of work into it up until now. How do we keep people from following rules? We deal with that every day. I think we have a whole building safety folks that are out there trying to make sure that people get permits for buildings and everything else. So we're constantly kind of trying to make sure that folks are following the rules. Sometimes these things happen, but I'd really hate to take a step back on the ordinance and the work that's been done up until now due to this one situation. But again, that's from a staff perspective, and I know there's been a lot of work put into that ordinance up until now. So that's just just want to provide that context.
Any further discussion on the motion on the floor? I don't think so. I'm seeing nobody. We'll vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motion is to revisit the sign.
Oh, no. Okay, sorry.
I didn't know where you were at here.
Nobody
Because I
does.
hear these guys.
Nobody does.
So, please reread the motion for us legally, so they get this right.
Do we have it restated? Because
It's
none
for
of us
city
wrote it
council to
down.
revisit the ordinance.
Huh?
It's for the city council to revisit the ordinance.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Ms. Grasser. All right, that is the motion on the floor. I want to make sure we're on the right one, because there's a bunch floating around here. So with that, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
We'll do another roll call vote.
Motion fails.
Oh, didn't it? I'll do it. Yeah. Arel? Yes. Budke?
No.
Clava?
Nay.
Holt?
Aye.
Mattson?
Nay.
Reichert?
Yes, or nay.
Sandy? Yes. Waspick?
I didn't vote.
Okay.
I can.
I think it's a tie, yeah.
Is it a tie? Nay.
1, 2, 3.
We put a lot of effort into that
No.
thing.
Well, it would be a tie if you voted yes.
Nay.
Okay, thank you.
Motion fails.
Motion fails at the end of the line. I just to everybody, we've done this before, gone through this before. Your next, this isn't dead. We are a recommendation committee to the city council. So we just provide recommendation to them. Sometimes they listen, sometimes they don't. So this is up to you guys if you want to carry this further. had this in the past, so those are your elected officials. Please, please exercise your rights. Thank you. All right, with that.
Chairman
we-
Wasik?
We got a whole.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be rude, but unless you need me for the balance of the agenda, I might leave.
If it's okay for me to say, you'd be excused.
Thank you.
I'm not sure where that sits. For just everybody, as you come out, please respect that we still got a big agenda to go through yet, so just take it out in the hallway, please, your discussions.
I'll just give it a
Communication
minute.
of preliminaries approvals, let's go.
4-1, ordinance to amend zoning map to rezone B1 to R2, 1302 Fifth Avenue North, 1308 Sixth Avenue North, B3 to R2, 623 South 16th, 1412 North 1st, and 411 North 1st, and B3 to R4, 1415 12th Avenue North, 702 South 14th Street, and 1221 6th Avenue North.
Ms. Edwardson.
Okay, so we've talked about nonconformities for quite a few months now. We've done some code changes. We identified the single-family homes that are in non-conforming commercial district. This is our first wave of actually bringing forward some rezonings. Haley sent letters and reached out to the property owners, letting them know of the issue, letting them know that they are non-conforming. They would not be open to traditional financing because of that non-conforming status. So these 8 properties, as you can see, have elected to come forward to rezone to their appropriate adjacent residential district. And so I can run through each one of them in the spirit of time. If there's any questions about any of them, can also take it that way. I'll just stand for any questions and follow your direction.
I think this is the one we preliminary approved last month, Mr.
We have
Reichert?
not preliminary approved this
Didn't
one,
we?
just to
Oh, this is
clarify.
a preliminary. I did this twice today, didn't I?
It'll come back for final.
It's a long day.
It's our official
Mr. Reichert.
Move
run
approval.
rezoning.
Thanks, Mr. Reichert. Second by Ms. Sandy. Any further discussion? Mr. Budke, careful.
I'd really like to thank staff's diligence on this. This was a ton of work.
It was.
This was a
Come
ton
back
of work.
again
It
next
was.
month. If we get any other property owners, we're going to continue to reach out and notify them periodically so that they are aware of the status and try to get them back on. Again, trying to help with that home ownership piece of it. So
Nice work. Yeah, agreed. Thank you, Mr. Budke. With that, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. 4-1 passes unanimously. 4-2.
Ordinance to amend the zoning map to rezone from L1 light industrial to B3 general commercial district, properties at 1307, 2001, 2003, 2005 Gateway Drive, 2010, 2012, 2014,
I thought so,
13th
too.
Avenue South.
I thought we already did
North.
this one. Am I wrong?
Ms. Johnson, please.
This one was next to those
We
ones
did
from last
that
month.
one, not this one.
So
That's where it
last
gets
month-
confusing.
Yeah. Last month was 2009, 2013,
Okay.
2019, 2105. And so we were continuing to reach out to these folks over here who were still in I-1, and they have agreed to go forward and do a rezoning to B3 as well. And so all the uses that are there currently non-conforming, more so B3 uses. So this will just be rezoning to get them into conformance. And unless you have questions, that's all I have.
All right. Ms. Reichert?
Move approval. Move approval.
Second by Mr. Holt. Any further discussion? Not seeing any. Oh, I thought you raised your hand, Mr. Holt.
Sitting too long, that's all.
I hear you there. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. 4-3.
Ordinance to amend the zoning map to rezone from Greenberg PUD Amendment 4 to Greenberg PUD Amendment 5, properties located at 1308, 3810, 3851, 3900, 3950, 3951, and 4001 39th Avenue South.
Okay, so
Miss Edwards.
for this one, we're on the south end of town. Furniture Row would be this property right directly in the B3 area here. This would be the existing B3 properties out behind Furniture Row. I think we all thought maybe the interstate exposure of that commercial cul-de-sac would have took off a little bit more than it has. So right now, the developer's proposing to shift this from the B3 status, PUD commercial, B3 underlining uses, to PUD light commercial, which would be follow our B1 district. Our B1 district allows multifamily residential as well as office, does not permit retail or things like that. So it would give them a mix of light opportunity there. If I don't have the GIS up, but in the area is the There's adjacent properties right now, like Aspen Lofts is in the area, Latitude Apartments, things like that. So the context of having the multifamily in the area makes sense from a staff perspective. They're also, as you know, we've been meeting as a parking subcommittee. We've been looking at the off-street parking code. Part of that discussions have been possibly reducing parking reductions where it makes sense, or leaving them as is as necessary. Certainly, there's more contention around the university area. This wouldn't be that. And so staff did propose, based off some of those initial subcommittee parking meetings, to look at maybe a modified parking requirement for the housing. They are going to go after, have not been awarded yet, but are going to go after state affordable housing tax credits. And so with that, the state looks at partnerships and community collaborations and things like that highly. And so obviously the zoning would need to be in place for the residential, for them to go after that. But the reason staff brought up the parking reduction, for affordable housing income restricted, so meaning they would have to provide tax documentation of being income restricted for a certain amount of years following the state regulations, indicates that typically those units come with a less parking demand. There's been studies across, I think I referenced the ITE, it's failing me with that national engineering. Brian's going to make fun of me when it comes to me because it's going to be obvious, but the national standard is 1.4 per unit. I think what we're recommending is around 1.5 because traditionally that's what those unit types are having in their parking demand. So staff
And where
did
are we at
initiate
now?
the parking reduction. So in here, you have your 1 bed, 1 stall, 2 beds, 1.7, 3 bed, 2 stall. Our current code for 1 beds is 2 stalls. Our current code for 2 beds is 2.25. Our current code for 3 beds is 1 per bedroom. And so we would be essentially reducing it about half a stall to 1 stall per unit is what we'd be looking at the request for this. This would only be if they're awarded an actively a affordable housing project. If there's no income restriction, meaning they're market-driven apartments, they would have to follow the normal parking code. It is specifically written and tied to if they have income restrictions for the project.
So there's no retail on the bottom? It's just offices or?
B1 would permit residential or B1, high-density residential. You couldn't do single-family. It would have to be high-density multifamily apartments, or you could do offices. You could do no retail.
Okay, that's what I thought yeah. So offices or whatever you got, nothing you can sell. Okay?
Move approval.
Moved by Ms. Sandy.
Second.
Second by Mr. Reichert. Discussion, Mr. Mattson.
So with the low-income piece, how is city tracking that? So this 3 years, 4 years, 5 years go by, how do we know, what's the city using to make sure that award is there, that we're meeting the parking then?
Once they're given the award, those awards come with a 25 to 30-year validation and reporting requirement. This body doesn't see it, but the other half of our department is community development, and they're very familiar with the income tracking and those things. So it's not that this is a 5-year, a very short time frame. It is a 30-year. Once the 30-year comes off, it will function in itself in that regard because the parking, unless parking changes significantly, altered in 30 years' time, right? Because our transit's improved enough to be able to accommodate it and stuff like that. But 30 years is plenty of time for the property itself to be self-sustaining in terms of marketability and market demand. The other offset piece of it, it is because of its location, there's really no ability for it to spread out into a neighborhood. It is self-fulfilling and self-regulating in that regard.
And how did the parking counts here compare to what we've been talking about in the parking subcommittee? Is this generally in line with what we may propose?
It is. We have been looking at reducing the 1 beds to 1, and then I think maybe the 1.75 on the 2 bed here might be a little lower. We still might be at the 2 bed, 2 stall per unit there. But certainly I think we were looking at 2 stalls per 3 bedrooms or more, so.
Thank you.
All right.
Is this on the bus route?
No, I don't
Not
believe they
yet.
go down to the cul-de-sac. I believe they'd have to go up to Target or Lowe's.
Oh, so it's right there.
It's not connected either, right yet? I mean, Sanford owns the south of this, so
Yeah.
I think once that continues to develop, it would.
Sure.
So right now, it's with walking distance of a bus route, but not
And
directly.
walking distance to groceries and shopping and all of that
Correct.
kind of stuff.
All of
which
those
I
things
think
are in
makes a
place.
difference when we're looking at parking requirements.
Yep,
Yeah.
correct.
Okay, great, thanks.
Okay. Okay, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, motion carries unanimously. Way to sit through the whole thing. Poor guy. I saw him come in and I saw the agenda and I went, oh man, you're gonna be here a while. All right, reports from the, shortened reports from the planning department.
Yep, short. We've had some site plan approvals listed. We've also been meeting for our subcommittees, parking subcommittee, sign committee, neither of which have a final ordinance to bring forward yet, but we are still working on them. And then the MPO updates are attached. Do I have any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Grasser.
You're welcome.
For keeping it really short.
Yes.
Other business?
Just want to thank everybody for, I know this is a very long night, and you guys certainly had a lot of comments thrown your way. I want to say we do appreciate the time that you guys take to serve on this board, so thank you.
All of us?
You're welcome.
Adjourn.
So moved.